Welcome back, everybody, to the European Tour Picks and Bets Mayo Media Network. Skylar, Hoke here after a little bit of a layoff. European Tour did not see any tournaments over the last 2 weeks, but now that we have the World Golf Championship making its way over to Florida, we've decided to come on in for a little Tuesday preview, breaking down some of these sub-markets and who we're interested in most coming over from the European Tour and competing this week at the Concession Golf Club. Tom, how's it going?
Yeah, it's good. It's strange, isn't it, having a bit of a break? It was disappointing. We had a great Saudi Arabia. Justin Rose kind of wasn't, expected to go well, and he did. Kevin Na, I don't want to talk about Kevin Na. But it was good. And then all of a sudden it's like, right, we've got nothing to talk about for 4 or 5 weeks. So it's back. We can talk about give you a bit of insight into these regular guys on the European Tour. Obviously go and see Pat and Jeff's show. We want the sort of full breakdown of the PJ guys, etc., which we are on as well. But we're here just to give you a bit more about the European Tour regulars.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you think back to the Saudi Invitational, you see Tony Finau finishing T2 there. We go last week to the PGA Tour, Tony Finau finishing T2 there. It's like, time is stagnant in this world of golf with what we have. And I'm really excited for this week. It's actually in my backyard here, about 15 minutes away from where I'm living. So try to sneak onto the ground. So if you see anybody out there pumping us, that's kind of me making my way, hopefully, to the course this week. But this field is loaded with a lot of the guys that, we are primarily backing on the European Tour. You're getting in there due to the, official world golf rankings that these golfers have that kind of get the bottom of this field in the odds boards and the lower end of the DraftKings pricing full of all of these guys that we love to play overseas. But I think we need to mix it up and start a little bit. So with the top of the board. So again, we're just going to stick naturally to those that are playing on the European Tour the most. And two of those better players, especially as of late, are some that you're interested in, Tom. Let's kick it off with your top of the board picks.
Yeah, so for me, and it's strange because it's a guy that I don't really get into very often. I kind of find he's a bit defeatist. It's Matthew Fitzpatrick. The first thing he said when the Bryson thing comes out is that he could go and add 40 yards to his game. It's not really a skill. And I was like, you could go and do it. Just go and do it because you're going to leave yourself behind, right? But over the last couple of years, he's kind of devoted his time to the PGA Tour a bit more. He's obviously got that win at the DP World before the Christmas break, and that seems to serve him well. And now I just think that when you look at where he's played well, it's Florida, it's Bay Hill. He should play well at Honda, Valspar, etc. But Bay Hill primarily, he had the seconds of Molinari, didn't he? Where Molinari had a 64 final round. And Memorial, I think, is a great golf course to comp here. Again, guesswork, because I do not know what this golf course is going to be like. I can guess and I could say to you I know everything about it, but I just don't. I spoke to Paul Cesario in the week and he just said short game is going to shine through. Chipping, putting, and staying patient was his key words. And the two guys I've taken to European Tour, Matthew Fitzpatrick, right, we're generally associate patience with. I think he's a guy that doesn't play himself out of tournaments. He builds himself. There's no cuts. So it's not a case of going to get yourself stuck behind the scoring. There was a bit of frustration on the final day, wasn't there, at Riviera with Fitzpatrick? He did look a little bit, the putts that he normally gets going in weren't going in. But I think he'll kind of learn from that. I think he was right there. He's got one of the most experienced caddies in the world on the bag in Billy Foster. We know what his chipping and putting is like. And if that is the test that we're going to expect this week, then he should be a good guy. And I think he's plus 600, plus 6,000, big guy for this tournament.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, we didn't really do a course breakdown to introduce the show because, again, we all are playing games. You said it beforehand. Guessing from a flyover is something that's difficult to do. Looking at the 2015 Bryson DeChambeau Championship, in college, like that is just a different ball game that we're trying to attack with professional golfers now playing this course. To your point, it does look like to some of those green surfaces, those complexes, a short game is going to matter. So I love the angle that you see with Fitzy there. And again, yeah, he was, through 54 holes, right in the mix of things. I think he bogeyed 17 or something early on Sunday morning and just fought it all Sunday. But the stretch of golf that he really has had, has been truly impressive. So to get him, 60-1, I mean, I think that's pretty fair coming in with the form that he has. And to your point, if it's going to be a test, and I hope it is, I hope they give these guys, some challenging courses. Because I think when that happens, your next guy can make a run at it too.
Yeah, absolutely. Just one last bit on Fitzpatrick. I think that the thing that kind of hurt him was that I think everybody expected Sam Burns to come back early, and he didn't. Right, he had a great front nine, and I think Fitzpatrick felt the pressure to kick on really quickly and got really despondent because he didn't catch. If he'd have just stayed patient throughout that front nine, got a couple under par, Sam Burns did give up eventually. He could have then made his attack on the back nine, but I think he kind of talked himself out of it. But I think he's he's mature enough. He's got a good caddy on the bag, but we're talking about that. Next guy, Justin Rose. I'm going to go back to the well. It may be a bit of recency bias. The last time I did this video, he come second. He was right up there. Was in contention. He probably shouldn't even have been in contention because Dustin probably should have run away with it, but he was. And yeah, Pat and Jeff talk about betting the ceiling of a player. Well, if he's betting the ceiling of Justin Rose, then this guy shouldn't be a 60-1 golfer, right? He's one of the only players. I think there's 9 or 10 players that've got multiple WGC victories in this field. He's one of them. He's won at Memorial and he's lost in the playoff at Memorial. He's had great runs at Bay Hill, which I think will be a really good comp. So everywhere that you want him to play well, he does. He likes the green surfaces and the Bermuda greens. Everything sort of suggests that he should play well. So if you're expecting Rose to be back as I was when he was at Saudi Arabia, and as I hope it will continue, then it's a great spot for him.
Yeah, and you look at Rose on DraftKings too, coming in at 7,700. Based on those odds, he seems to be a pretty significant value. And again, if you're speculating the comeback of what he is, of course, I agree with you in the point of I'd rather be early on individuals because you're getting those payoffs if it is than to be sitting there chasing the 28s 33s that come after they may lose out in a playoff or something, for example.
The thing is he's never going to get to 200 250 to 1. You haven't got, I think people don't want to jump at 70 or 60 to 1 because they think he's going to get to a really big price. Look how long it's taken Ricky Fowler and Jordan Spieth to get to those prices. They've got to those prices. One good week, they're back down. Jordan Spieth, what was he, 100 and whatever he was to 1 to Phoenix.
Yep.
28 to 1 next week. And that's exactly what happened to Justin Rose. If he contends this week, he's going to be 20 to 1 for the next PGA Tour event because everyone knows how good he can be. And if he doesn't play well this week, then you just chalk it up to a bad pick and move on. But Fitzpatrick's in great form and Justin Rose has the potential to be. They're great fits for what I'm looking at this week.
Yeah, you definitely have piqued my interest, specifically in Fitzpatrick, looking in kind of the outrights up there. And to your point, we mentioned we're going to get into the deeper end of a lot of these European Tour guys, and the echelon of players that win WGCs are world-class players. And not to say the 58th ranked golfer in the world isn't, an elite golfer, but it's a big task for some of these guys making their debut or maybe their second WGC start and to expect them to contend. And that's why we're going to take a look at some of these sub markets when we look at these deeper European Tour odds, guys. So for me, I'm kind of attacking a little bit of the angle of off the tee prowess. So if I think about that on the European Tour, because at this course, it looks like all 4 of the par 5s are reachable in 2, and potentially 2 of those par 4s can be drove as well. So if you look at who is the best in class off the tee for the European Tour who's competing this week, Laurie Canter is right there, Rasmus Hojgaard, and then my man Robert MacIntyre would probably be the third one of that bunch who are the best off the tee guys there. So as we dip into the submarkets, is there anybody else that's kind of sticking out to you that you want to speak on? And we'll look at some odds specifically for those guys, but those are the 3 that seem to be a little bit too deep in some of these.
Yeah, and I mean, we'll come on to those 3 guys in a sec. The one guy that I looked at from a submarket point of view, we talked about the podcast last night, was Victor Perez. I don't think that he can necessarily win the golf tournament. We expect him to go well at Europe. We expect him to win European Tour events. This is a huge step up. As much as he's 28, 29 years of age, he is still fairly immature in terms of golfing career. And the win at WGC, as you just alluded to, Dustin's won 6 of the last since 2013. That's the standard, right? And then all the other guys, I think the worst golfer, if you like, of the people that won WGCs is Russell Knox. And this is where, and he was playing at a decent level at the time. And that was a course that they go back to quite a lot. In China, you've got an idea that you come into a brand new golf course, and a lot of these guys are coming in their first time. The thing I like about Perez, which I've alluded to a couple of times on the show so far, JP Fitzgerald. I think he'll be a huge asset. He knows what it means to be in the WGC, he knows what it means to be in the major. He's been it with Rory McIlroy. He lives in Scotland now, I believe he does, Victor Perez. So he's just used to kind of challenge himself to these short games. The tight lies around the greens, the putting. It's not his best asset. His asset is irons, right? Pound greens, and that's what you expect. And he's long enough to reach those par fives that you spoke to. If he can just keep himself in, and I think having that experienced caddy on the bag will help him, then that's where I'd look. And I think is it 28-1? I think he is for a top European. That would probably be the angle.
So, and I think with Perez, even the better of angles, I know we're kind of focusing on some picks, is he's 6,900 on DraftKings for the week, which, based off of his, and again, I just don't want to correlate odds to DraftKings salaries, but with the talent that we know of Perez, to see him sub 7K, that is, especially guaranteed 4 rounds. I absolutely think he's a phenomenal play on DraftKings for the week. And then again, if you attach, if top European Tour player, 28-1 for Perez. And then that, if you take the each way for you guys, actually DraftKings produced the most sub markets for us here in the US. So Victor Perez is plus 560 for a top 4 finish of European Tour players. So again, and each way in that sub market, that's a pretty decent offering for somebody who I think can really eat up the course, to your point. And I'm going to be, loading up on him on DraftKings. So I'm a big fan. And also what's nice about Perez is he actually has a top 5 finish in a WGC in the past. At the HSBC fall of 2019, when he was really going on a run, he finished 4th at that WGC. So I just think he's got big game to him. So I like that.
Yeah, and he played well at Augusta as well. He's got this kind of experiences, isn't he, where he's been there and done it on the stage. And the guys that you're speaking about now, Laurie Canter, this is completely unfounded territory. Robert MacIntyre is a bit different. He's had that run at the Open. Very, very talented. Rasmus Hojgaard, the point you make about the 4 rounds, there's no miscut. We saw Hojgaard done on that final day last time out. He can take it deep. And that's what you need for DraftKings scoring, right? You don't get as punished. This is something I've been guilty of, is looking at guys and trying to find the guy that's going to win all the time. But sometimes it almost plays a volatile guy that just makes birdie eagle and then double bogeys and puts himself out of the tournament. It doesn't really matter as long as they're getting the scoring in, especially in this format of WGCs where there's no miscuts and you just need a guy that's going to put the scores together.
Yeah, and to your exact point, taking it deep like he did, the last time we saw Hojgaard, Sunday 62 in Saudi, and that was the best round of the day by 3 strokes. So, you see that recent form that is kind of popping for Rasmus. And again, 2-time winner at the age of 19 on the European Tour. Incredibly impressive. And the stretch that he did, unfortunately didn't take advantage of that when he got in his last major championship. But he's going to have all those opportunities this year. A good finish here potentially gets him into the match play, and you might be able to get into the players. Of course, you're in there. A good United States run on the PGA Tour is big time for a lot of these European Tour guys. So I'm excited for what's kind of ahead on some of these, and they can take advantage similar to what the Wallaces and the Hattons have done over the last few years. And now they're regulars.
And that's the thing is I was actually disappointed Wallace didn't get into the field because I thought it was being right up his ballpark. And I'm not a massive Wallace fan, but it seemed to strike him. When I saw what the course was, like, Matt Wallace would be great. He'd probably get the hump, but it'd be great. To your point about how important it is to play well here, this is the start of an extended Florida swing. They can play well this week. They're going to get invited to Honda. They're going to get invited to Bay Hill. It's so prestigious, and sometimes that's going to work against people, but it also gives you the motivation on a Sunday when you're not really in it to go and shoot an 8-9 underground, because you know what that can do to your world ranking points, to your Ryder Cup spots, with Perez especially. There's a reason to play all 4 rounds.
Yeah. I completely agree. And again, you don't have to worry about them teeing off and being 3 out of the cut line on day 2, and it becomes a stress all day with a sweat. The WGCs are just a different experience. So I love the angle. And again, we talked about attacking off the tee. Hojgaard is very long off the tee. His last 2 times out, he really picked it back up, what he had been leading the European Tour for a little bit of time last year. That to me is somebody you absolutely can go into at 6,700 on DraftKings. DraftKings. And then if you look into those submarkets, again, listed on DraftKings Sportsbook. So if we went into Hojgaard, so if you wanted to look into with the one that made most sense, I guess, for him, since he is from Denmark, right? So Denmark, he would be in the top European tour market, and he was plus 650 for that top four. And again, that market is led by Rahm, Rory, Hatton, and Hovland of the four top guys. But again, if you're trying to compete out one of those, I think from him down, I think, Hojgaard has a lot of upside. So to get it at plus 650, he's 33-1 to be the top European Tour player. But I'd be attacking that from the top four angle and think he can make a run at that.
Yeah, I think it's completely unrealistic to expect him to be the top European Tour guy. So I think to do that, he would have to be in the top 4 or 5. One of Hatton, one of Fitzrose, Rory, Rahm. One of those is going to be in contention on Sunday. So you're trying to take that on. But as you say, with the top 4, he's maybe got to finish 12th, 10th, 12th, whatever. That's then a lot more appealing. And, one of the things you say about the fact, he's Danish, the sort of prototypical Danish guy we've seen so far has just been an elite short game. Soren Kjeldsen, who's played really well at these WGCs. Thomas Bjorn would have played great at those sort of things in the past. He's got that kind of pedigree, but he's also got this athletic side of him and long distance that he can kind of put it all together. And the thing that you said about he's already a 2-time winner, and I put some hesitancy on that, didn't I, earlier on in some of the shows, and said that small events, weak players that he beat. But like I said as well, no scar tissue. He's not gone to WGC and finished 72nd before. He's not finished 64 and been humbled. He's got a chance to show himself off. Hopefully he does that.
Absolutely. And you talk about 2-time European Tour winners. Unfortunately, we can't talk about Guido Migliozzi this week, even though he falls into that category. He's not teeing it up, unfortunately. However, they announced on the European Tour today, instead of the open qualifiers for the U.S. Open, they're going to do that mini series again. And whoever racks up the most points during that, 5-event swing, I think it was, or 3-event swing, they're going to get exemptions into the U.S. Open. So hold our hopes. Guido is going to be playing a major this year. This is big year for Guido. It's still coming.
Yeah. If he's in the Open Championship, we'll have to fly you over because it's just down the road from me. Oh, that'd be exciting.
All right. I'm in. I am in. So if we continue on down, again, we mentioned Laurie Canter. So Laurie Canter is... what's the best way to describe Canter? An elite ball striker who, when he's in the moment, it's difficult for him to capitalize. Very typical of young players or those that haven't broke through yet. But his off the tee numbers, even adjusting them for field strengths, he is one of probably the top 20 guys off the tee in the world, which is a lot to say for somebody who's really broke on the scene over the last 12 months. But if you can take advantage of that here, his short game isn't terrible either from a chipping perspective. From a 5-foot putting end of it, it's a little treacherous. But again, if you look at those submarkets, I think Canter is one, and on DraftKings, that we can really attack this week.
The only negative I would say about Laurie Canter is I don't think he can get it done under the gun so far. He's not, he's lost to some really poor people. But what he is streaky. And, he will go 4 birdies, 5 birdies, 6 birdies, in the space of 10 holes. That's the type of guy he is because he hits it so far. I think it took a little while for even myself, really, to actually consider how good he is off the tee. I think we saw it, especially in Dubai. It is elite. That he is at that level. And I think the good thing about Laurie Canter and these other English guys is I don't think playing in Florida is that different to playing, at home, really, in terms of because of winds. Obviously, it's nicer weather, so you don't have this horrible Windsor where you can't chip and putt. But I looked at Doral very briefly, and Jamie Donaldson nearly won there one year. That's the level of player that can come up and play these sort of tournaments. And if it gets really, really hard, a guy that I've been really against so far from this point, Christian Bezuidenhout. If it gets really tough, I'd go that way. I don't think it's going to get that tough, so I wouldn't advise it. But if it's going to be a single digit, under par, then that's right in his wheelhouse.
Yeah, he's somebody who I think, to your point, what made me nervous was what is required off the tee for Bezuidenhout. We've mentioned that too. That he might not be there, but it's evolving. But that short game is lights out. So when it gets difficult and you can't really be attacking it, the way a Dustin Johnson or a Rahm or a Rory, who at the top of these fields are, I'm definitely in for the South African from that standpoint. And if you looked at Canter, so Canter, again, if you wanted to really shrink down to the sub markets, they do have the top English player available. So the top 4 in that point are Hatton, Fleetwood, and then your 2 boys, Fitzpatrick and Rose. After that, we get Sullivan, Westwood, and Aaron Rai with Laurie Canter. So a plus 240 to top 3 in that sub market, a juiced up 3 ball, if you're competing against, if you just say 2 of those top 4 are going to finish in the top 3, an opportunity to attack Canter there at plus odds. I like that angle. And again, on DraftKings, Canter, somebody is incredibly streaky. So to have him down at 6,500, I think that would be the one or 6,600 for Canter coming in 21st, 4th. I like the move too. And I'm not overall as worried about these because I don't care about travel that much in the realm of things, because they travel so luxurious, with their winnings, but they have had a layoff of time. So they don't have to rush into Florida on Tuesday and not get a practice round in. You know what I mean? These guys have been here for a little bit of time now.
And this is the thing is you look at Hatton, right? Tyrrell Hatton he's going to be popular because of the way he's playing. He's had no adjustment period. I think he lives in Florida or is based in Florida for a lot of the period of time now. Anyway, we haven't seen him for a little while. That's the thing, and it wouldn't put me off about that. What would put me off is when everyone thought he was in place so well in the majors, at the tail end of last year, he didn't show up, missed cuts. WGC's got a bit of a better record, but it tends to. I don't know if it's a pressure thing. I think he puts the pressure on himself. Whereas at European Tour, he kind of walks up, knows he's the big dog, knows he's going to get it done. And I think Tommy Fleetwood's a little bit the same as well, who I spoke about last night on the podcast, is that for the first time in a long time, Tommy Fleetwood was a big consideration for me. I wrote down a lot. He's brilliant at Bay Hill. He nearly won a Honda. Memorial was the sort of course that would suit him. The players, he's played well. Everywhere that makes sense, he plays well. So it is scary to take those guys on, but there is negatives. Fleetwood isn't playing the way he's playing, and his strength is his irons. Well, if they're slightly off, which they have been, then his short game isn't elite to save him, whereas Tyrrell Hatton's is.
Yep.
And I think the thing you say about with the DraftKings is you can have a balance here, can't you? You've got the guys that really fit the long game. So you've got the Canters, you've got the Hojgaards, MacIntyre is great at the tee. You can load up those guys and then take your elites in Hatton or whoever. But just balance it out, because we just don't know. We think that having length off the tee is going to pay off. It could be that at the end of, I think Eric Van Rooy, when he was in Mexico last year, did a lot of it with just short game. It really is, the prototypical player makes sense, but there's always one in the top 5 that just gets down around the greens.
Yeah, absolutely. And you hope to couple the at-green performance with a lights-out ball striking, and that's when you get magic happens. And, you fortunately run into those situations time in and out. And that's what MacIntyre does maybe 2 out of 4 rounds every week. He is almost guaranteed, it feels like, a 65 every time he tees up, but he might have shot a 75 the day before. Yeah. And to see him, do what he did at the Open last year, finish inside the top 10, in his home country, was a huge, I think, stepping stone to what has become. And I don't know if many people realize that he battled an injury towards the end of the year, layoff, and then just kind of struggled for a little time of stretch before getting that first win at the Cyprus Showdown. And arguably, he might be the, kind of the hot buzzing guy that's coming over that people are starting to be more familiar with. He's going to, knock on wood, get into Augusta with a good stretch of golf up here. He's going to play in the match play. Almost the one I compare maybe in a sense to is Justin Harding went on that stretch a few years ago where he won and he was right there in it. He comes over, plays the Houston Open, then he plays the match play, almost beats Rory. Like MacIntyre is going to get these kind of opportunities as the hot new thing. Now on the PGA Tour side over the next few weeks, he's already in the Arnold Palmer Invitational. He's going to be in the Players. He's going to have 2 WGCs and hopefully it ends with a major. And that's 5 shots you get right there to rack up some FedEx Cup points and maybe maybe have a shot at a special temporary membership to close out this year. And his life is forever changed. That's the opportunity that lays ahead of somebody like him inside the top 50, someone like Perez, who's now 30th in the world. This is, like we said, this is go time for them. And for two people off the tee who are arguably, some of the best guys there on the European Tour, I think MacIntyre can take it deep here.
I think that one of the things, that's a really valid point, because we see these guys in European Tour, and this is why we do this show, is because they come up, and people say, well, they're not as good. Their best is not the best of the PGA Tour. And to an extent, that's correct for the most part. Justin Harding finished 12th at Augusta on his debut. It just happens sometimes. Chris Paisley won a great run and nearly picked up his card from the Corn Ferry. These guys can make life-changing runs. Fernando Castagno back in the day ruined his career trying to play the PGA Tour. But you have to capitalize, and these guys are going to see that. And yes, it adds a bit of pressure, and you've got to decide whether you think they're going to run with that or shy away from it. Laurie Canter is never going to play the standard of golf that he's playing like this probably for the rest of his career unless he develops, and this is his opportunity to do just that.
Yep. I mean, you said the exact situations. I think of Tom Lewis winning the Corn Ferry, Tour finals. And now he's got a PGA Tour card for the entire 2 years. He finishes second in a WGC. That earns you enough points to stay on there as long as you're doing it. And again, we're not even going to go into the Puerto Rico Open, but that field is flooded with guys looking for their chance. You look at the top of the board, and it's like we have a European Tour event there with Peters and Wallace and Grace. And you get in the situation that Corn Ferry guys are fighting there. So, that's the angle that I think yourself and me and a lot of those that are following us really, really like that side of golf. And
shout out to Thomas Dietrich, who what was it, fourth or whatever it was in the college event in 2015. Yep. That is the only thing that we have got to go by. And everyone's looked at that and gone, right, Bryson DeChambeau won the NCAA championship. It's a Bryson course. Bryson wasn't Bryson.
Yes.
6 years. He wasn't a long guy. He beat C.T. Pan, and Bo Hostler was 10. So you've got Bryson, C.T. Pan, Bo Hostler, who are all modestly off the tee. And that's what gave me the kind of hope that Fitzpatrick could succeed. Mm-hmm. Justin Rose is fairly long, but the short game will help. And like you said, luckily you pick guys that, because Laurie Canter, the negatives are he doesn't look like he can make a winning putt, but he can putt and he can chip. Rasmus Hojgaard, you don't shoot 62 unless you can get up and down. So these guys have proven it. I have no fear over any of them in terms of DraftKings scoring, because there's nothing to fear. They're either going to fall behind on the scoring, or they're not going to miss a cut. There's no volatility. It's actually quite a nice event to get into DraftKings if it's something that you're not into before.
Yep. And again, no pressure of missing the cut. We're guaranteed the 4 rounds. So what were your odds on Fitzpatrick and Rose? We'll close out here. We'll run through the bets.
Yeah, so I had them at 60-1 each. I think they may be a little bit down, maybe 55s. Look, anything north of 50-1, I'm happy for both of them. Starts to get shorter than that, then you're trying to take on the real elites. You're looking at the Victor Hovlands and people that are going to be around that price range. Sung Jae Im is a guy that I liked because of his prior ankle. But then you start to question them. But all the time they're over 50-1. I'm happy with both of those guys. And Victor Perez, I think it was 28-1 top Euro. And like you said, just play the top 4, because that's the sort of thing we're aiming for.
Yep. So Perez was plus 560 on DraftKings Sportsbook for that top 4. When you looked at top European Tour player, that's a little bit deeper than what Robert MacIntyre was. He was plus 500 for that top 4, 25-1 outright. If you went deeper into Hojgaard and Canter, plus 650, plus 800 in that top European Tour player. Again, you can look at them in the top English player market, where that goes to top 3 odds. I believe there's a top continental European Tour player where you could get, or European player where you get Rasmus Hojgaard at plus 240 in those markets. So again, we're attacking the angle with specific guys. And then, giving them the opportunity to not have to finish inside the top 5 to cash those tickets and give us a decent each way look at that. And again, 3 of those guys are sub 7,000. On DraftKings, you have Victor Perez at 6,900. You had Laurie Canter at 6,600. And then Rasmus Hojgaard to round it out. Rasmus is 6,700. So I think that gives us a good little cherry on top to attack in all different angles. And again, we're just getting started. We had WGC for this week. Again, we'll probably have the players. We can do something similar where we focus on a sub market for it. And the European Tour is almost back. What are we, 2 weeks away from the next event?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, it might be a small event. It might be a really, bad event, but that's where we're going to come into play. As there's going to be guys down at 100-1 in that European Tour event that people have never heard of. There's some guys that haven't heard of some of the players in this field, and there's only 72 guys. So when you start getting 100 and whatever guys it is on the European Tour, it starts to get a bit sticky. There's probably not many people watching this video right now know who Richard Bland is. He's a heartbreaker. These are the guys that we're going to be talking about in the future in a couple of weeks' time, and we look forward to getting back to that. But for now, WGC event, I think we've been very cautious to say that it's a new course. It's hard to really get a firm grip on it, but I love the fact that you've looked at it and just gone, these guys are good off the tee. They're going to get that scoring done. From a DraftKings perspective, they're the best thing. And we've also been very clear, not to say that we've picked people that we know can't win. They all have the upside to win. But the realistic expectation is that they're probably going to finish 6th, 10th, 6th to 12th. And that's a good result.
That's a phenomenal result, and that pays off, and that's how you win tournaments on DraftKings. That's how you can get the opportunity to cash those each ways. And you're right. We're back in 2 weeks for some really big opportunities on the European Tour. I'm actually jacked up that we get back-to-back weeks in Kenya. So we have 2 tournaments going. So for those that remember, again, we mentioned Guido. This is now twice 2 Guido drops on a tournament that he is not teeing it up in this week. But we're going back to the Caring Country Club for the Magical Kenya Open, arguably the best trophy in the world. If you take a look at that trophy he won at the Magical Kenya Open, it's special. So but then they stay there for a tournament, I think teeing off on a Tuesday. So Tuesday through Friday for that week. So we'll run both of those for Kenya, but before that is the Qatar Masters in 2 weeks. So we'll have a good stretch of things leading up. And then seriously, it's going to be the match play before we know it. And that means the Masters on the horizon, 2 of the best tournaments. I absolutely love the match play. So I'm getting geared up for some big weeks here for our guys.
And this is a great time to talk about the guys because there's a match play. And it's always going to be what's considered a dusty Euro, taking on one of the top 5 guys in the world. And you think, what's going to happen? These guys are so good that one-on-one, anything can happen. Laurie Canter can take Rory McIlroy down. Look, Laurie Canter can beat DJ. Probably won't happen, but, the expectation that if we can give you the information, that's all we can do, right? We can only give you they're great at the tee, they're great at this. This will be where their skill set is. And that's what we're here for. That's what we're trying to do. Any thoughts, again, like we say, come to us on Twitter you might be interested in. But yeah, as far as we can say, a bit cautious this week because it's hard to know what to do with a new course, but we tried our best.
Yeah, and please, again, European Tour Picks and Bets. You can find us on the YouTube channel right here if you're watching us. Make sure you press that subscribe button. And then the Mix is where you can locate us on now all podcast formats there. So this is going to be going up in the audio version, which we got a huge amount of feedback for that. So now we're double dipping on both sides of that. So we appreciate you guys. Follow us on Twitter, interact, and we look forward to an awesome WGC.
Thanks, guys.